I had to airdrop it.
What?
It's sending now, but I have to airdrop one. Where is it? On my iPhone. Don't open it on my. Just opened. It closed.
Super. Nice to meet you.
Save a copy. You want me to save this copy? This one?
Save, yeah.
On my phone. Save. How do you how do you make it full screen? Left it. Present.
Present, huh?
Here. No. Maybe left.
Edit பண்ணுமே. Edit பண்ணுமே.
ஆமா, but already பண்ணியாச்சு. பண்ணியாச்சு.
Yes, I was. You need. I think I said no WhatsApp.
Maybe exit presentation.
And kids. Wonderful. Where are they? Son is in Wake Forest. Okay, nice. Daughter is in UCLA. Oh wow. This is her second? Yeah. Yeah, okay. That's far. That is far. Yeah, she likes it. She likes it. Yeah. What's she studying? She's studying business. Yeah. You're ready for the session?
I hope so.
Okay.
Nice
Good.
venue.
It is a nice venue.
Party venue.
Yeah, the party instead, if I don't know what I'm saying.
கொஞ்சம் ஆஃப் பண்ணலாமா? It's overheating.
So, no பிரச்சனை.
Chair.
So, I can just say next and I can do the next.
Okay, perfect.
Okay?
I just have to remember what the slides are.
Oh, we can rehearse. We can do a quick rehearse. We'll adjust the screen.
கொஞ்சம்
Adjust பண்ணிடலாம், right?
கொஞ்சம் இது வேணும். ரைட் சைடு அதான்.
கொஞ்சம் ஒன்கரா இருக்கு.
The slides are cut off though, right?
Is it?
Yeah, that's what even asked.
The barrier very aspect ratio.
இது maybe you can do a, yeah, let's do this. Let's do this present tools.
It is
Yep, we're live.
Hey, but this one is.
We're live on what? On
YouTube?
YouTube. News.
aspect ratio is also.
Shankar, is there a stand or somebody has to hold the mic to talk?
I'm sorry?
Do they have to hold the mic and talk?
Yeah, they don't have to stand. Actually, we just have the one mic here for. I thought we had more, but
Did they put it on a stand?
we just have the one mic.
You know what this is, Shankar?
That's the stand for the iPad.
Discard.
Hey, Sima.
Hey, Shankar.
You enjoy Mahakumbh or not? Allahabad. How you guys been?
Allahabad, we didn't see much except the Kumbh. But yeah, we went to Kashi and all. How have you been? Good. अच्छा है ना चल रहा है.
You know what's
Got back your applications and stuff?
Yes,
Where are you going? Tampa?
yeah.
Decided?
Yes.
No, decided, huh? Congrats.
19.
Okay.
Oh,
Can you connect to Dr. Uma on the phone?
audio.
Yeah. And then
Audio connected?
No, you connect the audio to this?
I didn't connect any of it.
Okay, that's fine. We'll see. Use the mic to talk. That shouldn't be a problem. Call up. You're already streaming. I just want to make sure. And दूसरा क्या है? Can you go to another website, Slido? This I want to control the projection through this.
Oh, charge பண்ண better நினைக்கிறேன் one app.
You need to charge it.
Yeah, charge பண்ண better. But anyway, yeah, I'll take it out.
Okay. Slido on our website.
Okay.
And I'll you use the Jack's Mother's Cry Inc. At gmail.com user ID and its corresponding password. Login is Google account.
check it out.
Okay.
Oh, you
அது
need that.
block தானே மேபி aspect ratio தான் சேஞ்ச் பண்ணலாம் actually but இது சேஞ்ச் பண்ணி
Wait, maybe in the PowerPoint app or
ஆமா அது border தானே
side.
Can't we, no, do me a favor, can't we go in, move the chair forward?
okay
Move
Slide
the chair.
view. What is the app?
Slideo.
we can
Slideo, yeah.
uncle
Move the chair
uncle
forward.
also have to shift you have to shift all the chairs
But just move this one chair forward, that's fine. And Gokul can sit on the side.
Slide view. Slide.
make sure no one is getting quick quiet about it right too
There's a stand here, no, in the front.
put the back of it on the edge of the chair
No, it has to be like this. Tilt it.
I don't see an AI app for it.
It's not an AI app.
I mean, iOS app.
It's not an app, it's a Google's like website. IO, it's not EEO, IO. It's a website
Okay.
and you can see what's happening, right? Yeah. Yeah, hang on to this. Tell me the number. 61. 61?
it's not gonna raise that
Anything else?
no
Okay, the first one. Okay, can you showcase the QR code on that?
wait
Hey, tilt it first on. Yeah. Does it stretch or no? Yeah, it does.
on the stretch
And then, but it's getting cut till
ஆமா அது aspect ratio தான் இருக்கு aspect ratio அந்த whole
Oh, maybe in the maybe.
அதுல சேஞ்ச் பண்ணனும்
Okay, okay, got it.
Cell phones, airplane mode please, or silent, and then, regular stuff. Toilets are over there, just in case.
okay
Just in case.
You can use any of the rooms actually.
Yeah. And please be careful with the wires here, that's all we have to say.
how do I show the QR code
There should be a, just say act, or publish, or present, or whatever.
where is that
We go to that first,
ஆமா
go to the first one, Bridging
Press it.
Words.
press it
Go into it, yes. And then there should be
Make
start or something.
make it,
Start or publish over there.
4x3 uncle
Huh?
அதான் பண்ணேன் வரல அதுலேயும் கட் ஆகுது
or maybe 16x10 auto
Auto button, that's it.
I did, I had.
And keep it portraits,
wow
okay?
uncle horizontal position கொஞ்சம் increase பண்ணுங்க
Maybe that's what. Okay, there you go. Okay.
Turn the lights up.
So, little bit, yeah. Okay. We'll make that.
And now go to the presentation. Let's see.
Appa, which question do I press
First of all, you got to start it.
how do I do that
How do you start it?
do I just press add do I start with the first question
Yeah.
Oh,
Paul is
I did
active.
watch it.
But no, it didn't come.
India won.
Paul is active.
The poll is active, but then there's a QR code to join. So stop it now. Stop that poll. Go to the left, go back one screen. Click on the three dots against the show. Active now. Yeah, there you go.
No way.
We saw it on the iPad. We didn't see it here.
The questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My whole history will come on the
Sorry.
projection. You gotta suppress all that. Oh, my Marjorie is now on my.
Also call Dr. Uma first and see if she comes online.
Do we need to I think we can use the
Yeah,
audio from here itself. Right?
They have to just go to the website. Tell them to go to Slido and put the code in. There's no QR code. Oh wait, no, I can do it this way.
No one's here yet. It's 3 o'clock.
Maybe this is it.
I hope not. Because there are a lot of people in Nashville who are eagerly waiting for this session.
I don't see it, Dad.
Let's get the next flight then.
Should I call
Should
them
go to
up?
Nashville if they're not
Nashville.
interested.
Yeah, and she's proposed a session in Nashville. So if you're up to come to Nashville,
Oh, absolutely.
we'll make that happen.
I'll go to Nashville.
All right.
Hi.
All right, we can't hear you.
I'll
There's
change.
Bluetooth there,
I'll change the audio.
Yeah, there's a Bluetooth speaker. That's Bluetooth.
You can connect that.
Yeah.
இல்ல audio change பண்ணலாம் அதுதான். Yeah, we're just fixing all the audio.
But then if you connect there, the mic can't connect.
Yeah.
So, hang
Wait,
on.
let me do something else.
Oh,
Let me-
just hit the speaker.
Yeah. That's pretty
Here.
let me-
No,
No, no, no,
don't
no.
use Bluetooth.
1 minute, but
Otherwise the mic won't
wait, I
connect.
think she does something else. Give me a second. Yeah, she turned it off for the battery. So. Yeah, I can change the audio here, no?
No. Talk now.
Let's get talk.
Party patient. You can speak. This just in the audio.
What do you want to say? Hi, Saket. Thank you for doing this.
I'm like,
Is the volume okay? Gokul, Uchantu.
No, Chanati.
The volume is low.
audio is.
Hello.
Hello? Am I loud enough? Do you have loud enough?
I didn't say anything. You have to change the output. How do you change the output on that?
Raja, I'm seeing both of you.
That's fine.
YouTube, like they ask, they can come. This is the live stream.
Okay.
No, we can just have a call. We can just have a call from another phone. And on the phone, I will just connect.
Just three people.
Let her be on the video call here.
So this is the
I'll
live
speak from another phone.
Is
there not a way to change the whole audio?
Try. I cannot.
I've put your iPhone on speaker mode. But it keeps you on this. Unless there's a audio difference.
Hey, I need to add that to get the Vivo Go app on that please, and then we need to get that. That's the only way I can share it on the screen.
Party, I'll call you back. Okay. I I use lots of shades.
Where did you do the lights on?
It's over there. And it was on panel as soon as you got to. But you have a USB-C to
Very good.
USB-C to audio.
USB-C to audio. I have it on my headset, but I don't have anything else. You want it? I don't break it out.
Yeah. Don't you think you have that much diagram?
I think it is.
You used to remember any word. You had something.
XLR. XLR you use.
Can you take XLR and put it to
Yeah. Take this and then I'll give you.
I need the aux.
I'll give you the aux.
Just plug it.
Oh, where's it? The mic there?
Uncle, do you not have?
Okay.
He is the phone. She's actually, she was there.
You downloaded that app? Vivo Go?
I'm there. Hello.
If you don't have, USB-C connected. What USB-C connected?
No idea.
Vivo.
Vivo Go. Logitech
Vivo.
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 MEVO space Geo.
Do you have USB-C to iPad? Oh, very good.
It's only for a couple of minutes because you don't break it down.
Yeah.
No, mic will be used. Yeah, it's already connected.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. No, and I think the 4 people watching. There are 4 people there, so one person is already checked. Good, so thumbs up. Are you in that application? Okay. I didn't add it here, that's why. Just start the application, please.
Vivo Go.
Yeah.
You're running everything from here, I got a charge in my phone.
Yeah, because we're gonna do this.
You need a time, either take a posture.
Yeah, Uncle has his thing card, you need to take it out for
You get that?
just keep going, get started. And then,
Yeah, hang on. Are you connected to my beautifully?
Yeah.
Yeah, hang on. Just done to next. You're on the same Wi-Fi, right? Yeah, that's all I need. Just give it a minute.
Next.
Next. Next. Okay, the share screen class. It is not yet. I see you.
You're playing more.
But you, I said shoot you, right? And you see your. Go back to your. Go back on the screen. I should have seen, but what girl shoot you, that's why I want to know.
No,
You're not shooting me like that?
I am.
So I'll be there. Yeah, okay. Yeah. See your.
Maybe Uncle has switches, let's.
More open me on other mobile as well as run with Wi-Fi. But you see my time, please shoot. Hey,
Hi, Ravi.
hey.
It's hard.
You have to stand the board.
You should find it. You automatically find it.
Don't give it, make sure there's nobody else can do it. Say what.
Yeah, that's right. Next. That it doesn't do it. It should find it.
Open view multi-plan on your.
And what it is.
Yes, sir.
We didn't have to stand it. Because it's.
You close Okay, one more what you want
Start the program in 5 minutes.
But I can't project on the screen, that's my problem.
You have to stand it and cross.
How do I stand it?
You want
Okay, can you get that close for again?
stand, then name
That QR code that you had, scan it, not this one, like.
I have to scan, right?
Yeah, you have to scan mine.
Okay, because, you don't have to go over Show me more. Okay, let me skip.
I got it. Okay.
You got me.
No speaker. I got it.
You could just call Marty.
You're on speakers.
So I don't need to open the
You were here a minute ago. What happened?
I have to keep the app open.
Yeah.
Then I can't call on here.
You can. Why not? The switch, no?
I'll be on.
Or just press continue, press Chromecast and then continue.
Screencast, right?
No. I don't see you here. I don't see you.
Okay, I'm here. Yeah.
You're in the app, but I don't see you just now. What you did something and you started.
Or maybe I need to go into video.
Yeah, screen, no, go to screen share and work then. Screen share.
Or sure you want to just.
Yes. Go to screen share.
Screencast?
Yes, screen share. Now.
No,
I need to. Start, right?
We go.
Now I can close it. Yeah.
It is. I got it very close to when I handled it.
Order.
I get it inside.
Order.
I might have some.
Can you hear me?
No, it's not working.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you. Hang on.
No, it's not working. It's on this. He was on my phone here.
This is what it sounds like. Just like speak out.
Hello everyone.
Okay, that's better.
We're going to start the program in a couple of minutes, so please bear with us while we get the YouTube link set up properly.
Sure. I give a test of the mic. Or is it right? Can you talk? That's it. Say a few words.
Sure. Good afternoon.
Okay.
Yes.
Volume a little bit higher.
Okay.
Need up. My volume is pretty high on my phone. Saket, can you increase the volume on the speaker? Okay?
That's max.
Okay. Yeah, can you talk?
Sure. I'm usually loud enough, so I wasn't sure it's me.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes. You're okay?
Yeah, you can survive it.
Okay. Yeah, if you can start or.
Start. Whenever you want to talk, you just.
Sure.
Sharat, you may want to see users. Camera is.
So he wants to say hi. So if you need.
Hello, everyone.
Don't I see you?
Hello. Check, check. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Everybody in the room? Everybody on the YouTube link, can you give a thumbs up if you can hear me okay? Okay, let me know when. All right. So, what we're going. Thank you all for coming today. Today is an important day. We are going to start an event from Mother's Cry. To begin with, I'm going to ask Dr. Uma Ayuni, the founder of Mother's Cry, to share a little bit about Mother's Cry, the vision, the mission, and what we are trying to accomplish today. So Dr. Uma, please, can you share a few words about Mother's Cry?
I need a mic.
Sorry.
One second. All right. Go.
Thank you. Thank you very much for connecting me. For all of my friends that are here, welcome. We are able to do this because of the technology and thanks to the team that I have, which is a wonderful team. And as you all know, it's this organization in 2010 on November 14th, which is Children's Day in India. However, the whole mission, as I would hand over pretty soon to Sarat, who is our outreach individual, would like to say one thing. The whole mission is mother's quest for child's best. And most of us have come here with lots of ambitions and lots of goals, but are facing innumerable challenges, especially growing up in a different cultural environment. So I really honestly appreciate all my team that has been very good contribution to the mission that we have. The main simple thing, however, a very important issue is to understand and have a better concept of what is going on in our children's lives. So following this, next month we will be having the youth express their opinions. And now I hand over the mic to Sarat Kuravi, who gracefully agreed to be outreach person as well as a speaker. Besides all my other friends, Gokul, Shankar, every one of you is a team. We are all one team. Take over, Sarat. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Uma. Just to reiterate, the mission of Mother's Cry is really to make sure the mission of Mother's Cry is to increase awareness, encourage support, and provide information about resources to families or loved ones with mental illness or developmental challenges. That's how the organization has started, but since then the organization has evolved to do more things, to provide outreach, but the ultimate goal and the vision of the organization is to provide for child's best and to keep the families together, provide the support and the resources for the family. Mother's Cry, actually, each letter of the organization stands for a unique thing that kind of explains the vision of the organization. Starting with M stands for mental well-being, O is for the outreach, therapeutic guidance, help and hope, empathy, resources, support, help with challenges, rehabilitation and recovery, primarily for youth as well. So this is a core mission of Mother's Cry organization. And today, we are fortunate to have with us here Dr. Reena Khanna-Goyal. She is a licensed clinical psychologist with over 2 decades of experience serving the Jacksonville area. Since 2000, she has been dedicated to providing compassionate and evidence-based care to adolescents, adults, and geriatric population. So she covers the entire segments of the population. Dr. Khanna-Goyal specializes in the assessment, diagnosis, and treatment of a wide range of psychological concerns. And this includes anxiety, depression, trauma, and life transitions. She takes a holistic approach and very individualized approach to therapy, integrating cognitive, behavioral, mindfulness-based, and other therapeutic modalities to help clients achieve emotional well-being and personal growth. She's quite well known for her warm and collaborative style. Dr. Khanna-Goyal is committed to empowering individuals to navigate life's challenges and build resilience. In addition to her excellent professional career, we are very fortunate to have Dr. Khanna-Goyal as part of the Mother's Cry organization. She has been on the Mother's Cry organization's board for the past 10 years, and she has been volunteering her services free of cost to spread awareness and for the community outreach. And just wanted to make, mention this, probably you all know, Mother's Cry is a fully volunteer organization. No individuals get paid from this organization. Everything that we do, the outreach and the resources, even the professionals like Dr. Khanna-Goyal, they volunteer their time. So we really appreciate what they're bringing to the forum here. And like Dr. Uma mentioned, Shankar here, Gokul, and others that are part of the organization, they volunteer their time, their effort to put these programs together. So please keep the organization in your mind. If you want to contribute something, you're free to do it, but the event itself is free of cost because the idea is to spread awareness. At this time, I'd like to welcome Dr. Reena Khanna-Goyal to come on up and share a few things.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us. It's always an honor and a privilege to represent Mother's Cry. As they said, I have been a proud member of this organization for the past 10 years. And I also wanted to thank Dr. Umayun. Even though she has moved to another state, she continues to motivate us and excite us and keep us really going. And we talk and we have an idea, and then all of these magicians, Mr. Gokul, Mr. Shankar, and of course they get everything together. They do all the outreach, they do all the planning, so they make it really easy for us. So I really want to thank them and thank Dr. Uma for having me as part of the organization. So today we're here to talk about bridging the gap. And it's actually an extremely broad topic. When I was thinking about how did we want to approach this, what did we want to talk about, there's so many different facets to it. So in kind of narrowing it, well, today I'm going to give you more of an overview of some of the issues, some of the challenges that our children are having. Normally, with Mother's Cry, we do these talks as a collaborative thing with parents and children in the same room, and having a discussion together about the problems. I think that we thought maybe we could do things a little differently this time, just so that we can give the parents a chance to understand things separate from the kids. And then, as we said, we'll have a follow-up session in March for the teens. I think one of the biggest challenges for parents today is communication with their kids, and kids understanding our expectations of them in a very specific way, especially as South Asian parents. And for the purposes of this talk, I'll be talking more specifically about Indian parents. And so I think that for us to be able to communicate with our children, for us to be able to understand them, we first have to understand ourselves and why we do the things we do, why we're doing things the way we're doing them, and why are they now becoming more problematic than they have in the past. So in order to do that, I think first we can understand who we are as people and who we are as Indians in America. So Indian Americans represent about 1.5% of the American population, which is approximately 5 million people. As you can see here, 2/3 are immigrants, 1/3 are United States born. And some interesting facts about our community. We have among Asian ethnic groups in America, we actually have the highest median household income at $145,000. That is compared to the general American population, in which the median household income is $80,000 approximately. And that's really astonishing. I think it's almost twofold with Indian families. So because of these reasons, we all know that Indians are very accomplished, very successful, very high-achieving group of people, which is something to be extremely proud of. And with this high achievement and with these expectations that we put on ourselves and our successes, how does that then translate to our children? How does who we are as a population in this realm end up looking to our children? And I think sometimes we wonder, because our children are navigating so many unique challenges now, are we actually making these challenges easier for our kids, or are we kind of complicating their lives a little bit? Now, in this day and age, Indians are represented so widely in politics, entertainment, business. All of these things did not exist previously. So, this sets a societal standard also, besides a household standard for our children, which is a positive. Things for them, role models for them to look up to, things for them to strive to. However, somewhere within our family system, I think things are getting a little lost for our kids. Kids look at our success, and I think they perceive it often as high expectations. They see their parents as unreasonable, unrelenting. And I think it is important, the other side of this positive thing, to look at how do our children actually perceive us. So besides being successful, high-achieving group of people, what is this doing to how our children look at us? Next slide, please. So I did a Google search on Indian parents and just simply entered Indian parents and looked up images. And this is one of the ones that had popped up. Beta, if you're reading this, you're not studying. You go to the next one. Indian parents, when you study when they want to, what they want you to, big hugs, and disapproval when you make your own choices. And that really speaks to feeling that our children getting the feeling that our love is conditional upon us listening to them and choosing what they've chosen for us. And it's important for us to know how we are perceived. These are the things that are on Instagram and TikTok, and these are the cultural pieces that all of our children are not only consuming, but they're also the ones who are putting them out there. So it really gives us some insight into how they see us. Indian student dad, I just matched to neurosurgery at Harvard. Indian dad, okay, but why haven't you won an Oscar? And that really illustrates this feeling that many teens express, that nothing they do is ever enough. So with this high achievement that we have as a community, which is so wonderful, we also have this other side that I think has been created, where our children are struggling to feel good about themselves. And perhaps as parents, we are not teaching them, or we're not imparting what we want to them. We want them to be confident, well-adjusted, successful. But somewhere along the way, I think that message is getting lost. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what can we do about this, why this is happening, how can we make a change. So everyone knows achievement is not inherently negative, of course, right? We have to drive our children, we have to motivate them, we have to teach them, we have to encourage them. Many Indian American children excel because of all of the parents' encouragement and love and support. So of course, this is not to say that every Indian teen is struggling or every Indian parent is doing something to their kids. You know, there are a lot of successful Indian young people. There's of course parenting that works very well. However, it's important to note, I think we take a one-size-fits-all approach to our children, and so we don't ever really account for the fact that what motivates one child might not motivate another child. So it's kind of like the example with the mean coach and the loving coach. You know, some coaches on athletic teams will really berate their players for making mistakes, and this motivates them, and for others this just totally crushes the kids. So really, you know, in a softer approach and a more encouraging approach works. So you really have to kind of not look at it as a one-size-fits-all thing, which I do think as a community, we sometimes have the tendency to do that. We do a lot of comparisons. I grew up with that myself. And so I think these are things that we have to kind of take into account when we're encouraging our children and looking at how to bridge those gaps. One thing also to understand is the reason for these differences. Why is it that we're trying to tell them, our intention is to encourage them, to excite them, to make them better, so to speak? Why is that getting misperceived by them? Why are they feeling like they're not doing good enough? Why are they feeling like they're failing to their parents and failing in general? I talk to a lot of teens who express feelings of anxiety, feelings of depression, and really self-confidence seems to be at the center of all of that. And unfortunately, I think some of the ways we try to motivate our children, it can do that to them. Parenting is hard, and of course this is not unique just to Indian parents or South Asian parents. This happens everywhere, but I do believe that as a culture, we're a little unique, and there's some reasons for that as well. There is an extreme cultural contrast between the Indian value system and the American value system. And that's one of the things I think that really is challenging for both parents and kids. Neither one is right or wrong, neither one is good or bad. They're just very different. So when you look at American society, our children are being raised in a world where they're supposed to dream, where individuality is valued, where self-expression is valued, whereas when we were growing up in the Indian traditional culture, it's very much one set on a value system of family values, self-sacrifice, putting others' needs and thoughts before theirs. So that's a very big contrast between what we're expecting from our kids at home, I think, and what they're exposed to in the American environment that they're being raised in. Being raised in America, we are taught that following one's dreams and duty to oneself is greater than any other responsibility. I myself, I am born and raised in Canada. My parents immigrated to Canada in the 60s, and I was raised in the 70s and 80s. And I was raised in a very traditional Indian household, but I will say that I can see that some of the thought processes I carry, some of the ways I approach relationships, the ways I approach life, are a little bit different than what I was necessarily taught. Sometimes I'll do something and my parents will be confused, like, why did you think you should do that? And it's not about not doing what I'm supposed to do or not, but it's just a thought process where it's that focus on individuality does come out. So when a parent tells a child, you need to do this for the family, you need to do this for us or the community or the society, I think that's really difficult for a child who's being raised in America to understand, to comprehend, to know what to do with, and it can cause a lot of confusion for them. In talking to kids and teens through my work and also through raising my own children, what's really fascinating to me is that the challenges they talk about are very similar to the challenges that myself and my peers faced in dealing with our parents 50 years ago. And that's really astonishing, and I think it really highlights the fact that we do need to do something differently. So much has changed, obviously, in the world. My 3 children are 4 years apart, and I think each of them has had a unique childhood based on developments in the world, internet, globalization, technology, access to information that we never had. And so when the whole world is changing, there's even careers that I can't even suggest a career anymore because there's so many fields that have been created that I'm not even aware of. So the world has changed so much, yet when we talk about challenges and teens are talking about how they're feeling and how they're communicating with their parents, why are we having the same issues again and again? So somewhere things have shifted, however, I think we are failing to shift perhaps at the rate that we need to so that we can facilitate our children's development as we intend, because our intention is all good. We want them to be successful, we want them to be happy, we want them to be healthy and well balanced. With that contrast, I think a lot of confusion, the contrast in the cultures, a lot of confusion is born for kids. We ourselves expect them to function and thrive in American society, but at the same time, we also expect them to carry with them an entirely different set of value systems, and then we want them to know when to use each one. And because they're so different and contrast so much, what works in one place really doesn't work in another. So instead of imposing these ideas on our kids, I think we need to think about how can we explain to them, where this is coming from and why we function as we function. Go to the next. This is to illustrate Indian parenting, because I think Indian parenting is probably some of the most involved parenting in the world. Indian parenting is based on a lot of love, a lot of care, a lot of self-sacrifice, doing anything to make your children come first, to facilitate their growth, to help them, to encourage them. And so I think that becomes a major point of frustration for a lot of parents that I talk to. I'm doing all this for my kid. Why are they locking themselves in their room? How come when I ask them what they're doing, they say nothing? How come they're not talking to me? Why are they acting depressed? When I'm doing everything I can. So clearly, as you can see, and that's the bridge that we really need to build, is why are our intentions as parents not getting translated to our kids as we intend them to be? And instead of boosting their self-confidence, in some ways we really end up hurting it. Just to illustrate the involvement of Indian parents, how it is globally compares to other cultures, there's not a lot of studies on our population in America at this time, and that's probably because of some stigma around mental health services and mental health in general. But I saw that there was a 2002 study that was done in India, and it found that 82% of Indian parents actively participate in choosing their children's careers. Now, that is compared to 56% of parental involvement in other countries around the world. So that's a pretty significant difference, which means it's a significantly different way of functioning. And again, with globalization and our kids are watching reels and TikToks from different countries, they are getting exposed to people doing things very, very differently than their parents are suggesting. Indian parents tend to value stability, safety, security, which are all very good things, but I think a lot of times our kids feel that we value those at the expense of creativity, of self-expression, of individuality. And so how can we figure that out? Because I think what happens is for a lot of kids, they start to feel very stifled, they start to feel suffocated, and they start to feel like they have to lie, they have to get away, they have to do all kinds of other things in order to be the people that they want to be. What drives Indian parents, though? So, first of all, there is that cultural difference, right? We all grew up in a world where we mostly did what our parents asked us to do. We engaged in the careers that they thought were best for us. And again, that comes from that focus on stability and the prioritizing the security of the family, which is, of course, a positive. But I think in some ways, it creates a lot of fear for a lot of us when we come here, especially from India. It's a new culture also parents are acclimating. Parents are trying to figure out how to maneuver their lives in society while raising kids in a different society. And when we are confused, when we feel like we're not sure how to do things, it creates a lot of fear in us. And from that fear usually comes anxieties, and the number one thing any person does when they're fearful of something is kind of lock down. So because of our fears, perhaps fears our children will lose their cultural roots, they'll lose touch with the language, they'll lose touch with society, maybe they'll get into something negative. All of these fears, I think, really create this need for parents to feel like they need to try to script their children's lives. And a lot of teens report that they do feel like that. You know, Indian families tend to put an emphasis, again, on safe careers, such as all of the STEM subjects, and they really focus on those, often not encouraging their children for their passions or their own interests. And I think that fear is something that we really need to address within ourselves, because as long as we're fearful, we're not going to give our children space to figure out what they would like to do. And I think sometimes when you give them space, you'd be surprised that all of the values and the systems that you want them to learn and you want them to take with them, they will often exhibit those and value those. We are not teaching our children to respect our value system. We're not teaching them how to understand our value system. We're imposing it upon them a lot of times. And that is not having the effect that we want. And it is creating more mental health issues for a lot of the kids who are struggling. Life in the world is so much more complicated now than it ever was. I think our kids have a really challenging thing ahead of them in terms of navigating all of the different things that they're exposed to. Things are getting more difficult, colleges are getting harder to get into, the competition is a lot stronger. And instead of creating that divide, I think we really need to think about how do we explain to our children why we feel the way we feel, why these values are important, how they can benefit from them, so that they will come to us and we're not creating this distance and creating this need for them to shut down. I think that also one of the biggest things we can do is probably a very, very simple thing, but very hard to do, is simply listen. It's very, very hard to listen. I know myself, I have been accused of being a reactive mother at times. You know, your kids say something and you become fearful, you become anxious, and you react. And they completely shut down. And I can tell you that, you know, as a mom with all of my knowledge, of course with your own kids it's different, feeling like I have an open relationship with my kids, I've tried to foster that. I can remember telling one of my kids that, you know, you're going to a party, go have a good time, be responsible. If something happens and you need to drive home, please call me, I will come get you. And I'm thinking, you know, I'm such an open, cool mom. And he just laughed and he said, I love you, but I'm not gonna call you. I said, you know you will, I'll come get you. He said, I know you will, but I don't think it's worth the lecture that I'm gonna get on the way home, right? I said, that's probably true, right? And so these are very small things, but it's so important that we really weigh our words with our children, because we do have a tendency to be reactive. Indian parents, that's another thing kids often say is anything you say becomes a reason for a lecture. So again, just to recap this, as it's showing up on the slide, the academic pressures and the career expectations become very overwhelming for some kids. They feel like they're never being enough for their parents. There's a rise in mental health concerns, stress, anxiety, and actually a lot of this can cause decreased performance and decreased cognitive ability, which is exactly the opposite of what we're trying to get from our children. And I think the most frustrating thing for parents who are working so hard and doing so much for their kids is that their love and sacrifice often gets misunderstood as control. We did go over the cultural differences. Again, Indian parents emphasize education, stability, family duty. US culture promotes individualism, self-expression, and entrepreneurship. And you know, those are the founding fathers have, you know, put this forth for this country, and I think these are the qualities that have made this country so successful. And in fact, these are probably the qualities that drew us to this country as well. And so how do we navigate that? How do we allow our children to live within that and thrive with that while also respecting our own belief system as well? Many children feel that parental expectations are too rigid. And again, as I showed you, social media reinforces the perceptions of pressure and lack of freedom. And again, we're parenting this way because I think it's what we grew up with. I think it's just what we're used to. I don't think we stop to consider when things are different oftentimes. And this is not unique to just Indian parents. It applies to individuals in all kinds of situations. We tend to do things the same without really ever stopping to think about why are we doing them? Are they effective? Are we getting the results we want? And really kind of pausing and looking at, you know, what is the root of this? Why am I doing it this way? And if it's not, if our kids are not giving us the results we'd like, instead of imposing more restrictions on them, can we try to talk to them, and can we try to listen to them and see what they're feeling or thinking? Next slide. So again, finding a balance between our value system, our kids, the environment our kids are growing up in, and our expectations. Please recognize the generational and cultural differences. Another very, very important thing we can do is I think we need to think about redefining success. Because we have a very fixed view of what a successful person looks like. And I think we do tend to script things that way. You know, what is success to our children? Now I think it all sounds really nice. You're successful when you're happy. Now what does it mean to be happy? You're wealthy, you're educated. You know, what does it mean to people? But I think historically and typically we've had a very narrow view of what success is. Again, because of the fears, because of what we're used to, and I really think we need to redefine that and broaden that. And it really is for every individual to think about, you know, what can they introduce into the way they're doing things? What, you know, where is the flexibility? If this is the road, you know, is there a sidewalk there on which my kids can walk? Still be within the bounds, still respecting what's important to us, but also us respecting what's important to them. And with that, allowing children room to explore and gain confidence. And I think that if you don't think about anything else today, or the one takeaway I would really like to impress upon you all is that for whatever reason, whether it's how our kids perceive us, their resilience, how they're wired, the way we are parenting is often leading to a lot of loss of self-confidence. Instead of boosting our kids' self-confidence, and giving them the tools and the skills to effectively maneuver the world, we tend to shut them down with our questions, with our insisting, with our imposing. And it's so, so, so important that we preserve their self-confidence, not only preserve it, but it's really our job as parents to promote it. And I think that if you make boosting your child's sense of self-confidence your goal, then I think everything else would fall into place quite nicely, right? Because then you're encouraging them, you're constantly listening to them, you're letting them know that their thoughts and feelings are important. That's not to say that they can do whatever they choose or you won't guide or suggest, but I think the tone, the non-judgmentalness, and if the goal is to boost them and make them feel better about themselves, I think all that will come from that. So maybe it's about switching our goal a little bit, redefining success, and switching the goal. If our goal is to boost our children's self-confidence and create a healthy, open relationship with them, then definitely, I believe they will be successful. And very importantly, they will be well adjusted and be able to handle all the challenges of the world, because at the end of the day, that is our main concern, that they be able to maneuver the world. So that's just an overview and my take on what a very important part of the generational gap is and how to repair it. A lot of it is just about educating ourselves, being open to shifting how we think about things, dropping our fears, listening to our children, trusting our children. And in talking to the kids next month, we plan to talk to them about how to respond to parents when parents are in that headspace, in a way other than shutting them out, in a way other than perhaps lying to get away with something, or feeling like they're just going to do whatever they want or whatever their parents say and not be happy. Teaching them how to maneuver that, but also really importantly, helping them understand why as parents we approach them in this way and what the intention is, and perhaps how to communicate with us so that we can impart that what we want onto them instead of stifling them, but really give them what we're intending to. Now I'd like to open up the floor if anyone has any thoughts or questions or anything to add. That would be wonderful.
I have a question. So when we say parents, right, so sometimes the kid thinks it's 2:1, you know, 2 people going after it. Right, so they often feel like, oh, you both are one group and you all are, you know, asking me to do this, do that. So how do you comprehend that situation so they don't feel stifled?
So in your case, the two parents are aligned, because sometimes parents are misaligned in their goals for their kids too, and so they come at their kids with two different types of goals, and the kids also feel very overwhelmed by that. I think, do you mean when you like actually approach them logistically or just in general?
Yeah, just in general, dealing with some things like, or you're trying to tell your opinion. I think here, instead of judging, right, you're encouraging, you want to have an open conversation. You're suggesting something, but then she may not like it the way that we're saying. It turns out to look like control, but it's really not. We're trying to educate, right? So how do you, like, simple example, right? Okay, I want to go eat outside today. And we both say no because we've been eating out a lot, and eating home food is healthy and important, right? So how do you like convey that and say, oh, we both are acting together?
She thinks you're ganging up on her, right?
So she doesn't feel good. That's a great example.
Well, I mean, I think obviously, like I said, it is important for our kids to learn to respect our point of view as well, right? I think we do a lot of talking about how we have to shift and change, and I think that is important. But, you know, at the same time, there are values and things that, yeah, so if for you, eating out is too much, it's too much. I don't know if you both approach her at once or she approaches you separately, because sometimes kids will do that as well. And perhaps just setting a boundary with her in a simple phrase such as, this is our decision together. As a family system, we don't think that's best for the family system. And I think that sometimes the verbiage we use is really important. Kids not feeling like they're separate from parents. If in some way, as a family system, it's not good for us to be eating out at this time again. I don't know if that addresses what you're talking about.
May I would like to share my thoughts on what Gokulji has mentioned. So, I mean, the way I would look at it would be, like, just for like, we have to, bottom line, we have to pick and choose our battles, like when we are communication with our kids. So, like, for instance, and we have to see, like, is it a simple thing that the conversation, the topic is about, or is it like a very like significant thing? So, I mean, at least in our household, like me and my husband, when we talk with the kids, so, I mean, if it's like a real important thing, like we need to draw the line, like this is it. We both as mom and dad are saying, like, this is really it. But some things like, some simple things, like the child wants to do something, then we can like just have one parent do the talking. Like, we don't want like to show like we are ganging up, like, because but at the end of the day, like if the child really wants to do that, okay, they will learn their lesson, it's not too big of a deal. So that way I think.
And that is a good point. I think that often the kids do feel ganged up on because we do tend to kind of come at them, again, from a place of anxiety or fear or reactivity, because we're so afraid of failure, right? We are so afraid that they're going to get hurt, we're so overprotective, that we tend to kind of come at them. So perhaps that's a great suggestion. Picking and choosing the battles, turning down the volume on how we're reacting to smaller things versus larger things, and really kind of approaching them in a softer way, one at a time.
When you mentioned they try to lie or get away from the conversation, should we perceive it as an adaptation to their individuality or their survival skills or whatever? Or should it be perceived as a bad behavior? Or should it be addressed? And how to address that?
That's an excellent question. Yes, a lot of parents I've spoken to really struggle with that. Kids trying to get away from conversation, avoidance, lying, doing things. I'm not sure that I would call it adaptation. I would call it a coping. They're coping with something. However, coping is not always healthy. We don't always choose the healthiest way to cope with something. So I think really looking at it is, what is the issue? What are they lying about? What are they trying to get away from? And they're using that coping mechanism because they basically don't know how to address it. They don't know how to address the emotions involved. They don't know how to address the issue. And most likely they're really afraid of what they're going to get out of it. What's the feedback going to be, you know? And so as a parent, not necessarily viewing it as bad behavior either, because I think when we view something as bad behavior, then naturally it creates an emotional response in us, a very negative emotional response. We would be angry, we would be frustrated, and so it's hard in the moment, but to really kind of pause and think about that. If this is how my child is coping with this situation, how do I approach them in a way that I can get them to open up and know? And perhaps it's something about, I know you're lying, I know you're trying to get away from this, I understand that you don't know what else to do or say, but can we talk about another way to handle it? These are my concerns. And a lot of times we don't explain to our kids what our concerns are, what our worries are. No, you can't go. Why? Because I said so. But why? You're just not allowed. Why? What is your concern? What is your worry? Because a lot of times, I know in conversations with my own kids, if I express what is it that I'm concerned about, they'll often say, yeah, Mom, I thought about that and this is what I'm going to do. Or, oh, I didn't think about that. Why don't we figure out how I can handle that situation? And that's the relationship that we really need to work on building with our kids, one of trust, right? And I think that when we tell them, no, you can't, and we don't explain, it really shows them that we're not trusting them a lot of times. I think the way we approach them, they don't feel respected, and when they don't feel respected, they really do tend to shut down. So I hope that answers your question a little bit. Again, it is an adaptation, but it's not a healthy adaptation. It's not one we want to encourage.
There's one online, Mohit Chauhan has written, excellent presentation. Audience is highlighting challenges with communication and also prioritizing. What is important for the child and parents is different. Could you provide some specific phrases or ways of communicating that can help bridge this language gap?
Okay. I guess what was the part before the question?
You basically suggested the parents are highlighting the challenges with communication and also prioritizing. What is important for the child and parents is different, is what he's emphasizing. But in questions, could you provide some specific phrases or ways of communicating that could help bridge this language gap?
So again, I think that it's a kind of a broad thing to kind of answer, but I will try to think, Dr. Chauhan, in the meantime, of some answers, some phrases. It's one of those things about understanding again, right? And maybe it is simply telling your child, I mean, sometimes you do have to put your foot down and you have to set a boundary and you have to say no, and no explanation really works. But for the most part, especially as our kids get older, they're approaching adulthood, we want them to learn how to maneuver these situations, and we can do that through example. So, for example, a phrase in setting a boundary with a child might be, I don't think that's the healthiest thing for you, and this is why. And really, I think what I'm trying to impart is explaining to your kids where your thoughts are coming from, why you're saying the things you're saying, or perhaps asking them, if they ask for something, why is this important to you? Why is this important to you that you do this when I think it's not good for you? So really kind of asking them the questions as well, engaging them so that you're open to understanding their point of view. And really, the perspectives may not align in certain instances. They may not, we may not agree with them. Our kids may not agree with us. But it is about the phrases you use, the tone you use, the non-judgment, but simply asking to understand. And that's really, really important. And I would say that's one of the major things that you can keep track of is when a child wants something or is trying to talk to you about something, asking them why is it important to them? Why is this necessary? Why do you think you need to do this?
Mine lost audio, sorry. Could you repeat that? Mohit lost the audio.
I don't think I can remember what it said. I was just saying that phrases such as asking your children questions back. Why is this important to you? If there's something that you all disagree on, if there's something that you don't think they should be doing or something they think you're being harsh on, asking them their point of view, asking the questions, trying to understand where they're coming from. I think that will go a long way. And always, always, always watching your tone, which is really hard in a moment when they ask you a question, when you've taken them out to eat 6 days in a row and they want one more and you're like, you know, it's hard to control that sometimes. But to really kind of take those pauses and not be reactive.
Like grown up kids, when they were in the school and college, there was some interest was bothering me. We want them to compete with the whites and American system. And they are doing great. There is a time comes, oh, we are Indian. We can do this. We pull them back. So it seems to me that I was confused that I'm letting them step in the two boats.
Right.
How do you tell the parents? I was feeling guilty that I'm putting too much pressure on my kids. How do the parents can help their kids in this situation?
And that's such a good point, right? We have to teach our children how to be competitive and assimilate and manage with the American value system, again, which is about individuality and freedom and independence. But you're right, then a time comes when we say, no, you're Indian. And as a child who's grown up in between the two cultures, I will say it's very confusing at times to do it the same as this family or that family, just because they're doing it that way, that you do it that way as well. That piece where you said teaching them American and then somewhere kind of holding them back, I think that is so important to highlight because that's the thing that causes, I think, the loss of confidence in kids too. Because on the one hand, they're performing really well in the world and achieving, and then suddenly they're feeling this doubt from their parents. And that's probably one of the pieces that gets really harmful for kids in terms of their self-esteem and self-confidence, is that doubt that we plant by holding them back. And again, I think, obviously, as a parent, we have to, we're doing the best we can with what we know. And at this point, though, you said your kids are grown, but forgiving yourself, not feeling guilty because you're doing the best you can, but really being open to understanding and having that conversation. Because even within that, maybe we're holding them as coming from a place of fear. And if we talk to them about it and we give them space, a safe space to discuss their concerns and their confusion, then I think we'd be surprised at the kind of solutions that we get from our own children. But I don't think we give them the space to maneuver that themselves.
Dr. Goyal, I think you hit on a very important point when you said we have to forgive ourselves sometimes, and that is so important, I feel, because we as like the Indian coming here and then we are parenting, we as Indian parents, we we take it too hard on ourselves, especially Indian mothers. It's okay, like when the gentleman has said, like he felt guilty, like when he was raising his kids. We should get over that guilt.
Absolutely, and
Yeah,
you're so right.
we have to, we as Indian parents and especially as Indian moms raising our kids here in this country, we need to give ourselves a break. And it's okay, we may not be perfect all the time, and having an open communication with our children that we are doing our best we can. And we should not be too hard on ourselves, and we have to be able to forgive ourselves.
I completely agree, and you know, as I described, that the Indian parenting is based on self-sacrifice. It's built on so much giving, and so the success of our children then, or how they're doing, or how they're faring, really we take it very personally.
Very too personal.
Too personally, in fact, because it really isn't about us. But when you give in that way, I think then it becomes that, right? You take it extremely personally. Guilt is also a very large part of our culture. It's part of the human condition as well. But some cultures have a lot more emphasis on guilt and, you know, how did you make this happen? This person's kid did this, or the parents must have been, you know, there's a lot of that feeling of blame. But absolutely, I think one of the ways, though, to manage that, and we don't do this, a lot of teens will say that my parents are not open to change, they're not open to my ideas, they think they are right and they know everything. I hear that from a lot of teens. And I think telling our kids sometimes, hey, I don't know what to do here. This is my worry, this is my concern. And I'm not going to do everything right. I'm doing the best I can. And absolutely understanding that we are all doing the best we can with what we know.
And also telling our children that we as parents here, we don't have the support system like the other typical the Americans have. Like they have their own, the grandparents, great-grandparents, aunts, uncles, they have so much, all the extended family here. But we don't have that here. It's just me and my husband.
And I think, though, that
So
creates
that's
a
where
lot
our-
more fear in us, though, too, right? Because we don't have that
We are
safety net.
overprotected.
And when we're fearful, we tend to come down even harder. And I think it's important for us, though, you know, along with alleviating the guilt, is kind of realizing that so many of our actions are coming from a place of fear. And is that fear even necessary in this situation? Or are we just instinctively just shutting everything down? Because I think it's hard to deal with a lot of these things, like you said, right? Being alone, not having a support system. Sometimes it's easier to say, no, that's it. I don't, you know, because I don't want to maneuver this, because I don't want to deal with this. But absolutely, and perhaps explaining that to our children, like you said, for them to understand us is also equally important as it is for us to understand them. And we need to explain and make them understand and not just impose ourselves on them.
Dr. Bush, as we were talking about fear, now that the fear is there in parenting since from the baby is born until he's grown up or even after too. So what is a healthy fear and how much, what is not unhealthy fear in a grown-up kids? So being a parent, as a parent, so how do we?
So, just in your question, I think, what is a healthy fear? Is fear was created to protect us. That's why our beings as human beings, as perfectly imperfect as we are, we have fear. It's meant to protect us. However, I think we take it, and because our minds work so effectively and efficiently, we tend to attach fear to a lot of different things. The fear, though, what does that tell our kids? I think fear really gives them the impression that we don't trust them, that we don't believe in them, that we don't think that they can handle things. So, simple example, if someone is getting ready to go outside and it's a cold day, my son's going to laugh, and you say, hey, take your jacket. Take your jacket, sweetheart, take your jacket. And he's like, no, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. Or even if he was planning to take the jacket, at that point he may not. But it really could give some kids a feeling that, oh, my mom doesn't even think I'm smart enough to take a jacket. which really can then have an impact on how they're viewing themselves. These are all unconscious processes. They're small things, they're subtle things, but kids really look towards us for validation. They look towards us to figure out their place in the world, how they're fitting. And when we're creating doubt for them from our place of fears, then that's a problem, right? So I don't know if it's so much which fears are healthy or unhealthy, but maybe more about pausing and looking at the fear and how are you managing it. So if I say instead of take a jacket, take a jacket, take a jacket, are you not worried you're going to be cold? And he may say, I don't feel cold, or whatever his answer is. But within that question, then I'm not doubting him. I'm asking about it, why he's thinking about it that way versus doubting him. So I think fear can create a lot of self-doubt for kids. Of course, we have to be aware of dangers and things, and as parents, I think parents have good ideas. I used to tell my mom sometimes, you have all these great things to tell me, but I get so like overwhelmed, or I get so irritated by the repetition or this that I miss the good stuff too. So really slowing down and letting our kids know what our concerns are, taking deep breaths, not coming from that place of fear and anxiety, and something that I know spiritually within India is talked about a lot, but I don't think it's very difficult to practice and not popular in our culture, is really a detachment with love and thinking about it that way. I've given my children all of the resources and all of the tools. At what point do I detach lovingly, allow them to do their thing, let them know what my concerns are, but not coming from a place of anxiety?
Mohit has a comment here. The important phrase that I tell my parents, or all parents, there is no single right way to parent. What works for another family may not work for yours. As culture, we are prone to compare with others.
Absolutely, and that I think creates a lot of guilt too, because if you see someone else's kids are doing things a certain way, they're succeeding, maybe your child is struggling, I think the parent then definitely will look at themselves and say, okay, what happened? Those comparisons are always dangerous. I don't think anything good comes out of comparisons unless you can use them to motivate. But there's a really fine line where comparisons cease to motivate and only create more frustration, both for parents and for kids. But definitely, every family has to find their own path. That's hard sometimes. Like you said, we don't necessarily feel we have the support system here. So the easy thing becomes to do it that way. Growing up, there was a very small Indian community where I grew up, and there wasn't all this access to information and media, even access to India for that matter. So I grew up in a community where it was definitely very comparative. If one family was doing things and that looked good, then everyone did the same thing. And it wasn't it was more out of a place of looking up to them, more out of a place of love because they'd been there longer and their kids were doing well and they could see, but that had some detrimental effects. That was very challenging. But definitely, especially in this day and age when our kids know so much, and that's a good thing, but it also creates new challenges for parents. They are exposed to so much. They have access to so many different ways of thinking now. We're looking at safe careers for them, for example, and they're watching people make very successful multi-million-dollar careers out of their passions online all the time. So, really shifting how we think about things and in doing it differently, really catering it to how you see your child, looking at them as an individual, looking at your family system as separate, and seeing what really works for you.
I think Dr. Mohan Chavan wants to call in. So
Sure.
Shall you want to be honest? Yeah.
Yeah, can everyone hear Dr. Chauhan? Yes, yes. Can you hear us?
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay, so I still wish I could be there in person, but I've had some health issues, so the advice not to drive long distance. And Dr. Goyal, sorry to be crashing your party here.
No, we welcome your input anytime, always.
So the reason I brought up specific phrases, because in general, these are the themes of communication that we end up discussing, right? So one is, even though we all might speak English like our children, they speak a different language than us. They speak a different language than us. So I think sometimes even when we are agreeing about things, it might seem like there's disagreement just because of the way things are being phrased. And sometimes it helps to ask the children, explain to them what you're trying to say, and ask them, how would you want me to say this so that you hear what I'm actually trying to say? So that's, I think, eliciting that from the children, because even the English, and this is true not just for immigrant parents, although it's a bigger struggle for us, it is true for all parents. So that's one aspect in terms of communication that I would like to bring up. The second aspect that had come up and repeatedly comes up is this sense of fear. So, most of us grew up in Asia and India. One is the real threat to physical safety. The threat perception that we grew up with was extremely different than the threat perception that our kids are growing up with. And most of us live in safe neighborhoods. So this is again not any different than, say, a kid growing up in an unsafe neighborhood in this country, their life experiences versus someone growing up in a very safe neighborhood. Because in general, there was a bigger threat of accidents or something bad happening to us. We sometimes apply the same fear to our children. And having a realistic understanding of, yes, there are different kinds of fears, or there are actually less possibility of harm than what we perceive, helps us reduce our fear. The last point that I want to make before I let Dr. Goyal take over is, there's always a lot of fear about the value system of the acquired culture. So there are amazing things in this culture that brought us here, the opportunities and such, but at the same time, we fear quite a bit about several aspects of this culture, especially a lot of parents as their kids become teenagers and such fear about romantic relationships and the extent of those relationships. And what I tell people is that, yes, you have to keep your kids safe, you have to educate them, but you also have to let them experiment with these things, because otherwise, as Dr. Goyal will probably agree, when these kids get into their 20s and late 20s, sometimes relationships become a huge issue because they didn't really experiment and learn how to navigate that in high school and college years. And then later on in life, it becomes extremely challenging for them to actually find partners and to have relationships. So that balance has to be made through active discussion. So those are just some of the key points I wanted to make, and I'll let out. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chauhan.
Thank you, Dr. Chauhan.
Those are all really valuable points. I think we touched on some of them. And again, the issues of romantic relationships, socialization, substance use. There is such a broad range of topics within this topic. So again, trying to figure out where to start and where to end. I think we could talk about this endlessly to try to cover everything. But of course, social interactions, and that's something perhaps we can cover at another seminar. I think it's a topic of its own. But definitely these are things, the fears that are associated with all of that. But I think the theme, even in what Dr. Chauhan was saying, is the fears. And are they realistic? Do they belong here where I'm putting my fears? Because so much of what we do with our children is very fear-driven. We are trying to prevent a certain outcome and create a different outcome. And in doing that, I think whenever we're too outcome-focused, we lose track of the journey and we're kind of just always looking at outcome, and then our reactions come from that place of, this is not getting me closer to the outcome I want. So we kind of come down on it instead of trying to understand, what's the path there? Is there an alternative outcome? What is your child's ideas? What is the outcome that they're looking towards? But definitely coming from a place of fear is definitely usually detrimental, just for us as families and as individuals within ourselves.
I have a question. So just following up on what Dr. Chauhan said, one more topic that is kind of taboo with the Indian parents is depression, right? And which is not as much as a taboo in the US culture, if I understand this correctly. You can speak from experience. So if a child, teenager, comes home saying, I'm depressed, I need to see a therapist because my friends are seeing a therapist, or things like that. I mean, the immediate reaction for an Indian parent is, no, you're not depressed. You just need to, why are you depressed? Well, maybe he or she broke up with their boyfriend or girlfriend. Or maybe they didn't get the grades that their parents were expecting. Maybe their friends are not talking to them. So Indian parents will typically dismissive about it and say, get over it, it's okay, you can move on. So the question is, at what point should we take the kids' input seriously and actually take them to a therapist versus, saying you can get over it?
I think that's an excellent point that you're bringing up. Mental health in general is very stigmatized within our community. I am seeing more and more people coming forward from our community talking to me, and on the one hand, I'm glad about that, but then on the other hand, it feels like, oh, is something going wrong. But definitely there is a lot more, there's a lot less stigma, although there's still so far to go. I think that one of the biggest things, and this is not just in Indian families, but I think it would be more intense in Indian families, but I see it a lot, is parents feeling like kids today in general don't have the coping mechanisms that perhaps we had growing up, that they're softer or too sensitive. I think that there is something to that, meaning as a society, we're not teaching our children the same kind of coping that perhaps we had learned or had to learn. So when they come to us with their depressed or anxious or whatever that is, we tend to have a difficult time understanding why they would be feeling that way. For an Indian, there's also a normalization in society through, I think, social media and through other avenues of anxiety and of depression. A lot of times, some of the patients I see, again, in the general population, they're down and they'll go to, I'm suicidal. Like there's nothing in between. So really helping your kids understand, what does depressed really mean, Is this something that you've been struggling with for several days? Is this something that just happened and you're feeling down today? It's normal to feel bad up until what point? And again, really opening that conversation with them. When we talk about the general population and their difficulty understanding the different coping mechanisms, or as we feel, the lack of coping these days, I think it's even harder for an Indian parent to understand their children's depression, so to speak. And that's because of perspective. So for many, 2/3 of Indians in this country who were born in another place, India or wherever, and they've immigrated here, their challenges and their struggles and their upbringing, like growing up in India, I see my family, my cousins, I don't think I would survive. The competition is so intense, the way of parenting is intense, there's different things to deal with in society and community. And so I wonder sometimes if when we're raising our children here, we really feel, I've given you so much, you don't have to deal with this, you don't have to deal with this, your life is pretty easy, pretty good. It's very difficult for us to even understand sometimes, what do you have to be depressed about? And to really understand that that's not how depression works. You can have everything, as they say, you could be in a castle and still be unhappy. So depression works kind of like that, and it's not about dissatisfaction. The brain is an organ like any other organ. It can malfunction. Things can go awry. So I think talk to your kids, see what they're feeling, see how long it persists is usually a good clue in knowing. Ask them how they're coping, what are they doing to manage these negative emotions. Have them, give them some tools and see how it goes over a shorter period of time and check in with them. And if you feel like it's persisting longer than it needs to, or they're having a lot of negative thoughts, then definitely seek help. Because sometimes, even though we feel like our kids may be telling us, I think children in Indian families may actually under-report depression and anxiety to their parents because they do feel that they get dismissed a lot. So I think it is important to be really aware of keeping track of that and taking it seriously, not necessarily jumping to help, but at least asking them the questions and really assessing the situation.
So there is a converse to that too. Sometimes we as parents want to help the kids and offer, okay, let's go see a therapist, or a counselor to see where you're struggling, because they don't always necessarily want to talk to us, being parents, and because of our fears or whatever. But the kid doesn't want to do that. Oh, we don't want to go see a therapist. If you're going to take us, I'll shut down. I won't talk. You can waste your money all you want. I mean, how to get over that kind of a situation then? Because we really feel they may get the necessary help from a person who, knows more about how to handle these situations than we as parents do.
And that is very challenging. You have to bribe them. and we can laugh at that, but to some extent it's true, understanding why don't you want to do it. Again, having that conversation, because it becomes such a lock-in thing. And I had seen a lovely thing about relationships, and it talked about how a relationship is like, a problem in a relationship is like a knot. And what happens is, one person holds one end of the thread and the other holds the other end, and we keep pulling. We don't ever pause, put the knot down and look at the knot together. And instead it's like, I want you to go to therapist. No, I don't want to go. I don't need it. Yes, you do. No, you do. And we really make that problem even bigger. So really maybe trying to engage your child in, why don't you want to go? But also telling them, hey, I need you to do this for me. Give it one chance, and then that's it. And you can't bribe them either.
To that point, Dr. Goyal, okay, as parents, Indian parents, they have the stigma, like they don't want to take the help from the mental health resources that we have or the professionals. But what could be the reason, from your experience, what could be the reason the children don't want to seek help?
I don't think that's not unique then to our community, because in the general population, a lot of teens do not want to get help. They don't want to listen to their parents. They don't want to, I think, again, there's probably fear associated with it. Anything that is suggested by parent, and they're not feeling understood by parent, and they're feeling like parent is just trying to fix them, take them somewhere else, solve the problem. They may feel that you're not connecting with them, you're not wanting to deal with them, you're not willing to engage with them, and you kind of want to shove it off on someone else. So again, I would really encourage, as I do with, like I said, the general population, because oftentimes even adults don't want to go into therapy or seek the help that they need. We're really talking to them about why. What is the fears? What is it that you're concerned about? Why wouldn't you do this?
So it's not specific to our Indian kids, you're saying, in general, even any teenager may resist that.
The thing is, what that is indicative of is the child feeling like they don't have a problem, and we have the problem with them, right? So really, Mom, you have the problem, I don't have a problem. You think I need help, but I don't think I need help. And again, it's feeling like, okay, you're just trying to fix me up, but I'm fine. I think everything's okay. And again, for any individual, we often need feedback to know exactly what we're doing and when we need help sometimes. And as parents, then you really do have to persist. And I'm not about bribery, to be honest. I mean, incentive to go. What are the things? How can you connect with them? Hey, I'll take you to lunch after the appointment, something. But showing that you're also a part of it, because I think sometimes they feel like you're trying to you're identifying them as the problem, and you're trying to blame them, and then I think you get some pushback when that happens. I don't know if that applies to your case specifically.
Anyone else, even if you want to just make an observation or a comment, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, we can wrap up.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure speaking with you all today, and I appreciate all of the interaction and comments as well. Thank you.
Thank you all for taking the time to join us today. It's a very informative session. Thank you, Dr. Khanna-Goyal. We really appreciate you taking the time to help us understand some of the complexities and challenges that we Indian parents face. But also, I think the point that you mentioned about some of these challenges may not be unique to Indian parents. You know, I think that's a common challenge across the society. What we'd like to do as part of this is a series of workshops or sessions that we are conducting. The next session that we want to do, now that we heard things from the parents' perspective, we want to hear from the children's perspective, from the kids' perspective. So the next session we are going to do it in March, the
30th, same place.
On the 30th of March at the same place. At that time, we would like to see the kids, children come participate, share from their perspective how things are, and I think Dr. Khanna-Goyal will focus more on that as well. You know, how it is challenging for the kids to navigate in this complex world while trying to make their Indian parents happy, but at the same time going into the American society and trying to stay abreast with the things that are happening around them. So that's an important one. So I would like to say, yes, ma'am.
Where is the information about all these sessions? Are there any flyers? Where do they get posted?
Yeah, we have a website called motherscry.net.
Okay.
I would like to request you to go there, and we'll also, did we get the sign-up sheet?
Facebook.
There's a sign-up sheet out there.
There's a sign-up sheet, so if you can share your information, we can send you information. And we have a Facebook page as well, which a lot of people tend to check it out.
And we drive the kids with service hours to attend. They get service hours.
Yes, they do get service hours to attend this session. Thank you.
So the next session in March, is it exclusively only for the children to attend, or the parents can attend?
So that's a good point. Initially, we were thinking that we will do this both together, but then realized that just like some of us have said, the kids tend to not express themselves when the parents are around. So that's the reason we kind of split it into two groups. So the idea is to let the kids express themselves, so without being under the shadow of the parents. So that's the reason we wanted the kids to exclusively attend. I don't know if you want to say anything on that.
And also, a lot of times, if you're offering solutions to kids in front of parents, then the parents will go home and be like, they told you to do that, and we don't want to create that. We want to try to give kids solutions and ways to manage things that feels like their own, and not imposing. And that was part of the reason for wanting to do this separately too, is because sometimes when you're clashing or have conflict, you hold on to things that, this person said this about you, mom, or you do this, and so I think a lot of our sessions were turning into a great deal of talking about the problem and not really coming up with a solution. So trying to do it this way. And Gokulji just had a great suggestion that perhaps a subsequent session to the next one is pulling out a few points that are in common and how the parents are perceiving it, how the kids are, and really bringing everyone together and discussing how to maneuver those things as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'd like to conclude by thanking you all for taking the time to attend today. And also would like to thank some of the key members of the organization, Mother's Cry. Our founder, Dr. Uma Iyuni, who has spoken earlier on the video call. Dr. Reena Khanna-Goyal, of course. We also have Dr. Ravi Kancha, who is part of the founding team. and Shankar Krishnan here, and his son Saket, who has been a great help today, doing an excellent work of putting this event together, and Gokul Krishna. So we will give them a round of applause for their work. Thank you all. Conclude this session.